Good morning and welcome to the Landmarks Preservation Commission public hearing and public meeting and public hearing of March 24th, 2026. We begin by taking attendance. I'll ask our legal counsel, Mark Silverman, to call the roll.
Vice Chair Master, Commissioner Chen, Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Here.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby, Commissioner Jefferson,
Here.
Commissioner Mann,
Here.
Commissioner Wilder. This is for the public, just so you understand, we need 6 commissioners. We only have 5 right now. One of the commissioners is stuck on a train. But just so you understand, we need a 6 to take an action today. So what we're going to do is we are going to present the testimony. We'll take the presentation. We'll take testimony. And if Commissioner Quimby hasn't made it here by then, we will not take an action, but we will then bring it back and get his comments and perhaps take an action at a later time today, just so you understand. Okay. Or you want to read it into the record?
Should I? Yes. This meeting is being held in our hearing room at 253 Broadway on the 2nd floor. It is also being held via Zoom and live streamed on YouTube for anyone who would like to participate remotely. We are going to begin with public meeting agenda for items which have already had a public hearing, then move to the public hearing agenda for new applications on our designated properties. Now I would like to turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala.
Thank you, Commissioner Ginsburg. We're going to start today's Preservation Department agenda with public meeting items as noted. I do want to note a schedule update. We will not be hearing public meeting item number 2 today. That was LPC 26-06533 354 Bowery. That will not be presented today, and we'll bring that back at a future public meeting. We'll now move to public meeting item number 1, LPC 25-05076. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1717, Lot 62, 68 West 119th Street in the Mount Morris Park Historic District. This is an empty lot, formerly 2 row houses built in 1894 and demolished in 2023. And the application is to construct a new building. This was read into the record at the public hearing of March 10th, 2026. However, it was not presented and no testimony was taken at that time. So we'll do that today after we open the proceedings.
Motion,
So moved.
Commissioner.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Actually,
To open the hearing, Commissioner Mahan, would you make the motion?
I'll move.
Commissioner Goldblum, could you second it?
So seconded.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes.
All right, you may begin.
Hello, everybody. I'm Charles Happel. I'm representing Caliendo Architects for 68 West 119th Street for a proposed 5-story and cellar 8-unit residential building within the Mount Morris Park Historic District. We fall within the historic district boundary, not within the extension of the Mount Morris Park Historic District. As seen here, we fall within that zone. So this building was originally 2 separate buildings under 66 West 119th Street and 68 West 119th Street. The building was built between 1939 and 1941. This is showing the original conditions. So currently it's an empty lot, and we're proposing to build back similar to what was originally there. This is a streetscape showing the proposed conditions. Perspective view. This is the rear of the building. Empty current conditions at the site. This is the proposed building. As mentioned, we're building back similar to what was originally there. A perspective of the proposed conditions. So we are proposing a vertical taller than what was originally at the site. However, what we're proposing will not be within the line of sight from the street view. This is a drawing of the rear of the building. Site plan showing that we are not within, we're proposing similar depth to what is in the nearby area. As mentioned, we are proposing 8 families for this building, combining interior-wise, but maintaining the exterior of the original 2 separate buildings. Some additional floor plans. Another perspective view of the rear of the building. Again, more perspective views of the front. And we are proposing to maintain a similar building entrance to what was there, and we will be matching the original railings that were at the site. This is a stucco detail of what was originally at the building facade. And this is a zoning analysis showing that we still fall within current city zoning.
Commissioners, any questions?
Can you just show the backyard, what's the existing backyard looking like nowadays?
Sure. This would be in the bottom right.
And is your building lining up with those or not?
So
or-
it's not aligning completely, but it is
There it is.
within the depths of the adjacent building.
And just give me, this was originally built as a single building?
There was originally 2 separate buildings, and then we're proposing it to become one building, but we're maintaining the front facade.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, so for, what? Oh, I'm sorry.
What was the reason for not having stoop to go up to the parlor level?
You're referring to the stoop in the front of the building?
Well, in the original building did have it, so I'm just trying to understand what was your approach for removing.
So being that it's a multifamily building, we do have to provide handicap accessibility into the building under current building code requirements. So the proposed ramp takes up a significant area because we have to maintain a 1-to-12 slope. So that would have been the reason.
Commissioner Mahan?
Can you point out the ramp and
Sure.
describe how it works?
Here.
The original building had a stoop. Time the buildings were demolished, was there a stoop or had it been removed at some point?
Oh.
Past.
Just Fred, would you be able to join in with this? Okay. I believe there were originally 2 stoops there because there were 2 separate buildings.
Understood. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions, commissioners? So now we'll start with public testimony. First, for people in the room, I have three people's names. Carlo Eduardo Carlon. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning. My name is Carlo Eduardo Carlone and I live at 64 West. I'm here representing myself and several members of our block who could not be here in person. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We oppose the application in its current format. I will present 4 highlights from our written testimony. First, the proposed condominium with its massive 5-story rear extension and 26-foot height increase is aggressively out of context and not harmonious with the surrounding 4-story townhouses. Its sheer bulk overwhelms and obscures the townhouses, degrades the open character of the central greenscape, and will likely require aggressive underpinning of the neighboring historic walls. It has no front stoop, which disrupts the streetscapes. As our photos demonstrate, a condominium of this scale belongs in Midtown or Miami, not in a Harlem historic district. Second, more than 26 feet of additional vertical bulk will be plenty visible from the street, not minimally visible or invisible as claimed. The applicant has not submitted contextual mock-ups, but for context, a 20-foot arborist pole can be seen from the street. The vertical addition will permanently alter the historic silhouette and create a substantial adverse visual impact. Third, the design functions as a parasitic structure. It leverages the presence of landmark buildings to secure views, light, and air for the new building while conferring no enhancement or public benefit to the district. The result is contrary to the objective of preserving and maintaining the historic fabric. It evidences an intent to extract value from the landmark designation rather than to respect it. And finally, there are procedural inequities and precedent concerns. The applicant performed illegal work on the pre-existing properties, and these properties were subsequently demolished. Now the applicant seeks to benefit from such demolition to create a massive condominium that would never be considered if the previous properties were in place. Approving the project in its current format would create perverse incentives and penalize the existing owners who have followed all the rules to preserve their historic property. The District 1971 designation was not a suggestion, it was a covenant. We purchased our homes in explicit reliance on that status, accepting the burdens of preservation in exchange for the city's promise of protection. We are stewards of a legacy we did not create, but are entrusted to defend. Approving this condominium does not just alter the skyline, it breaks faith with every homeowner who played by the rules. We're not Miami Beach. We are a Harlem historic district. To permit this development is to dismantle the very regulations that define and sustain this neighborhood. In conclusion, we respectfully request the Commission to deny the application are currently submitted and follow the precedent established in 2013 when approving 70 West, which you saw in the picture, a 4-story townhouse whose rear extension is limited to the cellar, ground, and first floor, perhaps combined with a more modest and contextual rooftop addition. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Edward Schumacher.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great honor to be here. I'm the neighbor at number 70. I've been on the block for 15 years. Everybody who's been here has been here a minimum 15, 30 years, things like that. You'll see that we've been having the president of the Block Association. This is a very strong, our objections here really represent everybody on the block very strongly. The proposed duplex at 6668 West 119th Street is just a clear violation of landmarks, height, envelope, and facade restrictions. In doing so, it egregiously violates the historical character of a proud Harlem neighborhood whose old and new residents have been working hard together to rebuild over the past 2 decades. Close inspection of the plan reveals that the developer is going up 26 feet instead of the 10 or so feet normally intended by the current regulations. He is doing so to add what is in effect 2 additional floors to the 1 floor intended by the regulations. This brings the total to 3 additional floors. The extra 2 floors include a large terrace with its own bulkhead and rooms. plus on top of that, an elevator shaft and the mechanicals for the entire building. These effective 2 additional floors violate landmarks line of sight and minimally visible height restrictions. You saw the line of sight drawing on there. Our own people have done their own line of sight measurements, and it does not come out like that. Our own guys doing it, who are very experienced, including an architect on the block who submitted and engineers on the block, and they say no, wrong. Moreover, all this is unnecessary. There's no reason for the elevator to extend above the first floor of the planned two-floor penthouse on top. The shaft can be integrated into the second of the 2 floors, or if not, even better, buried underground. In terms of the envelope, this is especially egregious in the back. In the developer's plans, all 3 floors extend back 13 feet. Normally to extend back 13 feet, as Carlos said. We're the ones who did the extension next door, as a matter of fact. But what he has done is not just to do those bottom 3 floors. He's extended back the top 3 floors and added balconies. So the extension in the back totals 16.5 feet, not 13 feet. And it's a big, massive bulk in the back that goes all the way to the top of the building. No other house on the block does this, on either side of the block. In addition to the envelope violation of standard landmark rules, it's an extraordinary violation of space, weight, and privacy for all the surrounding neighbors. With this thing as it is, the privacy and sanctity of all our backyards will otherwise be lost if this is approved, and historic envelope and character of the back of all the landmark houses will be damaged. Finally, the facade, the issue of the facade, and I know there have been questions.
I'm so sorry. If you could summarize the remainder of your testimony, your past 3
yeah.
minutes.
The facade, the proposed sunken ramp and elimination of the stoop in front is an extraordinary and unnecessary eyesore. It totally breaks with history and every other house on the block. Either 1 to 2 stoops must be included in the design. We can agree with a single stoop. They can have the sunken patios on both sides or in the middle if you want, but there must be the stoop. Also, Landmark Commission.
I'm so sorry. You're well past the time limit.
then
Thank you so much. We need to move to the next speaker.
You have the regulatory power to eliminate the ramp normally required for ADA accessibility. I've looked up the rules, and so I hope that you guys will take that power. Thank you.
The next speaker is Shanti Jackson.
Good morning. My name is Shantae Jackson. I represent myself as well as members of the block of 119th Street, as well as the Block Association, where I'm running as I sit as president right now of the association. Good morning. My family has lived in the block of West 119th Street for 35 years. My family was friends with the original owner of those 2 buildings, 66 and 68, a sweet old man we call Mr. Bowling. I was also friends with several of his tenants, one in particular, an older woman named Pat, for she was my babysitter of my youngest son from the age of 6 months old until he was 4 years old. 4 years of age. Everyone took to my son, especially Mr. Bowling, who used to give him $1 every day for the store and a gallon of Turkey Hill ice cream every week. Mr. Bowling managed his buildings like a family-oriented home. No particular apartment was immediate family. It just felt that way. In the backyard, Mr. Bowling and Pat grew fresh vegetables and fruits. My son was a part of planting and watering as well as playing back there when it was too hot to go out front. And when out front, it was a good time, especially in the summertime. Sitting on a stoop, meeting and greeting and talking to people from the block, the community, the area, as well as, from the block, the community, the area, as they walked by or came through to see someone. 119th Street from Lenox Avenue to Fifth Avenue, including Building 2 West, 120th Street and Fifth Avenue, was and still is family. Taken away its firm foundation, its structure is made to feel empty. It makes us feel empty. It took away the homeliness, the love once shared there. The those two brownstones was a part of the block, which is our block. And for the people who have lived there from the beginning, and for those who moved away and come back to visit to show their children, family, and friends where it all began for them, it takes away the memories for they are not only removing landmark buildings, but for a lot of us who couldn't show up today, I speak for them when I say they are taking away our history. So I ask of you to please rebuild buildings 68 and 66 and 68, the two landmark buildings, back to its original design. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Given that there isn't, do we have remote testimony?
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. You'll be promoted to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be Emma Bartley.
Hello, my name is Emma Bartley, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC also has concerns with this proposal. First, the 5-story rear yard extension is excessive for the block's small rear yard condition, intruding significantly into the shared open space. The height should be reduced to be in scale with the adjacent landmark brownstones. We also question the design choices for the front facade. While the design attempts to read as 2 row houses, it creates a missing component with the lack of the stoop, suggesting that stoops were removed rather than intentionally omitted. We therefore believe the applicant should revisit the facade logic for this project. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Christina Conroy.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now, unlike the proposal you saw recently for a new building at West 122nd Street, recreating the facades of the demolished buildings is the right approach for this otherwise intact row. However, there are many issues with the design as presented. First, the new building should be more respectful of its neighbors, both in height and rear yard projection. The unfortunate demolition of these designated buildings should not be an excuse to build higher and deeper than its neighbors. Second, it appears that the front facade will be constructed of EIFS, or stucco on top of insulation board, and that the details will be constructed by layering insulation board, and this is inappropriate. The facade should be true masonry with precast brownstone components and/or brownstone stucco on real masonry. Third, the cornice calls out as a, quote, site cast cornice. We're not sure what that means, but it doesn't sound like a good approach to creating a quality reproduction of the large and elaborate historic cornice. And finally, and most important, the stoops must be part of the design. It makes no sense from either design or historic preservation perspective to recreate historic facades that look like they've suffered from the inappropriate loss of their stoops. These stoops were present when the buildings were demolished, and all the neighboring buildings retained theirs. If the applicant doesn't want stoops, a different design that has its own integrity as well as an appropriate relationship to its neighbors should be considered. Thank you, Commissioners.
The next speaker will be Claire Tattersall.
Hi, good morning. My name is Claire Tattersall. I live at 5 West 119th Street. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm speaking just on behalf of myself and my family, and we oppose the application in its current format. I'm just going to present some highlights from my written testimony. Firstly, the design is out of context with the landmark guidelines that are put in place to protect the history and the legacy of the neighborhood. Secondly, the vertical scale. More than 26 feet of additional vertical structure will be clearly visible from the street, not minimally visible as claimed. The applicant neglected to submit contextual mock-ups originally, but a 26-foot structure blocks the skyline, the light, and negatively alters the aesthetics of the neighborhood. The depth, it has a massive 5-story rear extension in addition to the 26-foot height increase, which it's aggressively out of context with the surrounding 4-story townhouses. Its sheer bulk overwhelms and obscures these other townhouses. Fourthly, the design does not include the traditional stoops, as many other people have also pointed out, that are a defining characteristic of this landmarked community. The district's 1971 designation was not a suggestion, it was a covenant. Everyone on the block purchased our homes in explicit reliance on that status, accepting the responsibility of preservation in exchange for the city's promise of protection. We're honored to be stewards of a legacy we didn't create, but we're entrusted to defend. Approving this condominium doesn't just alter the skyline, it breaks faith with every homeowner who played by the rules. To permit this development to dismantle the very regulations that define and sustain the neighborhood and discredit the landmark status. So we respectfully request the Commission to deny the application as currently submitted and follow the precedent established in 2013. Thank you so much for your consideration.
The next speaker will be Sarah Taylor.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Sarah Taylor. My family and I own and live at 75 West 119th Street. We've lived in Harlem for 20 years, and we've owned our brownstone on this block for a decade. Our building is directly across from the proposed development area at 66 and 68 West 119th. As you can see from my friends and neighbors who have already given testimony, this is a block invested in the hard work of building community and with great pride in our historic buildings and community gardens. Part of our decision to purchase on West 119th Street was its landmark status. I will note our commitment to the historic nature of the block as evidenced by the details we dedicated to the full facade renovation we completed a few years ago. We worked with the New York City Historic Properties Fund to ensure that we were in fact in full compliance with this historic preservation. I was looking forward to the development of the site that we are discussing today. After the lots were abandoned and were then an empty lot, this was a true opportunity to further develop our block through maintaining its historic character. When it came time to the actual development of the lots, however, the developer made a presentation to the block in January 2025, after which we submitted a list of questions and comments in March. However, we received no response to address our concerns and questions. As already noted, the building would not have a stoop, making it a startling break from the rest of the block and impacting the community. As also noted, the building would be approximately 25 feet taller, 3 stories, than the surrounding townhouses. And finally, my understanding is that at the CB10 meeting on January 13th of 2026, the developer's representatives expressed the developer's intent to proceed without a letter of support from the block or the community board. While, of course, the developer is legally entitled to do this, it shows a concerning disregard for our tight community. We therefore oppose this proposal for the following reasons. It establishes a troubling precedent that undermines the integrity and autonomy of historic structures on our block and elsewhere. Approving the design as it stands undermines the very mandate of the LPC, including the elevator height exceeding maximum allowable heights. Again, this sets a troubling precedent and disrupts the historic nature of our block. And finally, regarding the developer's intent to proceed without true engagement with our community and without the support of the community, this stands in direct contradiction to the fundamental purpose of the landmarks law, including fostering civic pride and promoting historic districts, quote, for the education, pleasure, and welfare of the people of the city, end quote. Thank you very much.
The next speaker will be Wolfgang Schulz.
Hello, good morning. My name is Wolfgang Schulze, and I'm the owner of 71 West 119th Street. I'm here to formally object to the proposed plans for 68 West, and I'm asking you to reject the proposal in its current form. I think the LPC should demand a more modest development, which will be in harmony with its surroundings. In 2023, my wife and I watched from our living room window how our block lost 2 landmark buildings from 1894 at the hands of a reckless and aggressive developer. For us, this was very emotional. My wife was so sad and upset that she actually cried when the cranes started the demolition. I was mostly angry. Angry because these historic buildings could have easily been saved. They deserve to be restored, just like ours and like many others on the block. But Mr. Cohen decided to cut corners and started an illegal demolition during which his crew compromised the structural integrity of these buildings. My main concern with the proposed construction is its enormous size. This planned monstrosity will add 2.5 stories. That is that is 26 feet above the cornice line of the neighboring buildings. In my opinion, a building of that size violates the character of the 12 row houses that used to form this entire assembly. I think that the renderings shown in the presentation do not do justice to reflect that size of what they are planning to build on top. To get a better idea, I think the developer wants to add 2 giant shoeboxes on top of the roof, which will ruin the overall flow of the row houses. Mr. Cohen's intent is to squeeze every possible square foot and profit out of that lot. But after the loss that Mr. Cohen has inflicted on the community, I don't think that he deserves any generous approvals or leniency. If you were to approve this proposal, you would hand a terrible success blueprint and precedent for other developers in New York City. Just follow the simple recipe. Neglect and compromise the landmark building, have it declared unsafe, have it demolished, and then maximize the use of the empty lot. Considering all this, I respectfully ask this commission to reject the proposed building plans. Demand that the developer comes back with a smaller design that respects the historic context of our block. After what happened here, a more humble approach and a more humble building with a reduced scope is much more appropriate. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Adam Solman. Adam, you may begin.
Lifted. Bear with me 1 second. I'm busy. I will speak to you later.
Anyone else who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that we're awaiting a formal resolution from Manhattan CB 10, though we have received a preliminary committee recommendation that the applicant follow LPC guidelines, specifically regarding the materiality and construction of the stoops. In addition, we've received 10 individuals recommending denial.
Thank you. First, does the applicant have any response to the comments?
Yes, I just have a few responses. One is that it was mentioned that the building was demolished as the result of the owner. There was actually an emergency declaration about the structure not being safe. So the building was actually demolished by HPD. In addition to that, I've been hearing 27 feet as the vertical extension. With the fifth floor, as well as the bulkhead, the height is approximately 19 feet taller than the adjacent buildings. And again, in addition to what we mentioned before, the reason for the removal of some of the stoops was to provide the handicap accessibility. So this is a detail that we can work with and figure out a better solution.
Thank you. I would note that Commissioner Cumbray has now joined us, so we have a quorum. Commissioner Wilder, did you have a question?
Yeah, just two quick questions. Did you guys look at, I saw your sightline diagram. Did you look at the building from any other angle to see if, did you do any studies to see if anything would project higher from any other angle that would be visible?
So we do have some perspective drawings, but you're saying from any other angles or from?
Yeah, because this is from straight in front, so I was wondering, would that be visible at any other angle?
So we do, am I able to control, do I have to click this or? Okay, so there are several perspective drawings, if we could pull some of those up. Okay, it says I can click now.
And another quick question while we do that, is the front wall aligned with the others? 'Cause
Yes,
one of them doing it look like
yes,
it's
the
projecting
plan
out.
is to align the front wall,
Okay.
so it's shown in the site plan. We have several perspectives. Let me just pull them up. So this is from the right, from approximately across the street. This would be probably a perspective from the middle of the street. Some additional further away perspectives. As seen, can't really see the extension from these various views. Just trying to see if we have any more in this drawing set outside of this section. So these are some perspective renderings as well to further support everything.
And also, what went into the decision for the material on the facade?
So the original has a stucco finish. So in the front, we were proposing a stucco finish. And in the rear,
The building had stucco finish?
oh, it did not. I'm sorry. It was
It
a
would have been
brownstone. I
brown, it would have
apologize.
been brownstone
Yeah, I'm
originally,
sorry.
but many brownstone buildings have
Yes.
been resurfaced with stucco, of course, over the years.
My apologies.
No
So
worries.
brownstone. And the rear, we are proposing brick similar to the adjacent property.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Jefferson?
Just two questions. Are there brownstones that have handicap access now existing in the city somewhere?
I think as we're switching to multiple families, we have to have the handicap anything that's 3 family or over.
Right,
So-
but you could figure it out. I mean, if you put a stoop, you could figure out how to put an elevator in. We've seen it before.
Yeah, we can investigate further.
Oh, thank you.
And Commissioners, if I could provide some context about the public testimony regarding illegal work by the applicant. The 2 brownstones at this location were both demolition by neglect buildings. We reached out to the long-term owner. He agreed to make repairs. He retained an architect, and then unfortunately he died. The estate understood the need to have repairs made. They very quickly sold both buildings. The new owner was dealing with obtaining a certificate of no harassment because these buildings were both former SROs. He hired an engineer and was making steps towards stabilizing the buildings. He then sold them to the current applicant after about 4 months. The current applicant then started the process of getting permits to make repairs and actually had workers inside the building cleaning out construction debris. The floors had all collapsed, and so there's a lot of debris on the ground floor. DOB had issued a vacate order And so having workers inside the building was a violation for DOB. They also did not have a permit from DOB for removing the debris from the building. So that was the illegal work that was underway. When DOB inspected the building, they realized the conditions were very bad, and they issued an immediate emergency declaration to demolish both buildings at that time.
Thank you. I have a few questions. Could you not drop the front so you didn't need the ramp and steps down? Was there a reason you did that?
I can go further investigate if there's a way to keep the stoops. But as far as
I'm first asking if you need to have the entrance below grade.
Meaning for the main floor access,
Correct.
Okay, yeah. So we potentially lowered it for the handicap access primarily. So I don't believe there was any additional
Right,
reason.
but if you didn't lower it, you could have handicapped access without a ramp or a,
There could be ways of us pulling that off without having the ramp. We could potentially have the entrance within the building at the ground level, but somehow adjust this in such a way that it maintains the historic context.
okay. Next question, on the basement level, there are 2 windows missing from the line above. What is the reason for that?
Perhaps because the ramp would be in the way. Let me just see.
There.
Yeah, correct. So, let me just see. Okay. I'll have to investigate further this one.
And then finally, a few questions. The first floor of addition before the bulkhead seems to have a fairly high ceiling height above the 8-foot code required. Could you lower that?
Yes, as we can easily lower that to
And
8
then
feet.
second is the bulkhead seems to be at least 4 inches taller than is required, because I think you only need 7'6" for
Correct.
there. So you could lower that too.
Yes, sure.
Thirdly, there are mechanical units on top of the bulkhead. Could those be put on the roof next to the bulkhead?
Yes, as long as we maintain the fire path, that should be fine.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing, please?
Move.
Commissioner Cumby, can you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Commissioner Mahan, can you start the comments, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Sounds like there's a awfully complicated, perhaps convoluted history here. So the path to the present day is a little perhaps unclear. I want to begin by thanking all the neighbors and members of the public for their testimony. It's greatly appreciated and a very important part of this process. And, I'm certainly quite sympathetic to the valid concerns that they raised and other commentary of all sorts. In general, I think, rebuilding sort of recreations of the historic condition is an appropriate approach here. I do think that there's additional, work and refinement to be done. At the sort of biggest scale, I am not convinced of the scale of the extension, both at the roof and the rear. I'm not convinced of the need for it or the appropriateness given the adjacent conditions of the rear yards, extensions of the adjacent neighbors, visibility or lack thereof of the rooftop extension as well. In terms of, the sort of expression of the architecture, if we're going to take an approach to recreate the historic condition, I think we ought to do so a bit more faithfully. So at the rear, I think that the rear facade should be expressed as two buildings or have some expression of a kind of pairing or duality. On the front, along the same lines, I think the cornice ought to be expressed as two distinct cornices. I think the ground level or the basement level, I suppose, needs work. I actually think the inclusion of stoops should be studied, a stoop or two stoops. I'm not sure. I think that with some study and creativity, access could potentially be created while incorporating one or more stoops. I find the sort of interruption, the lack of a stoop, harmful to the consistency of the block. I understand that in some neighborhoods, in some cases, stoops get removed over time. That doesn't appear to have been the case already here when the buildings were demolished. So, while I'm supportive of the approach to recreate what once was there, I think a not insignificant amount of work still needs to be done to sort of find this project to be appropriate within its context.
Commissioner Goldblum?
Thank you. I agree with what Frank was saying. I'll put my comments in a different framing, but the same general outcome. Regarding the front, I think Mark's idea about raising the ground level to a grade to allow for direct access is interesting and should be. However, I'm okay with the ramp. We've seen ramp, but I think it certainly can be done with the addition of the stoop, definitely on the rightmost door. Having keeping the entry on the basement level under the stoop, which is the traditional arrangement. And that would be acceptable to me. I don't know about to others, to have one stoop and not two. Looking at the interior layout, it looks like it'd be a bit of a challenge to have the second stoop entering into a bedroom, but they could probably redo that floor if others felt that the second stoop was necessary, but you couldn't really have the second stoop and the ramp at the same time. That just wouldn't work. So I personally would be okay with having one stoop. I think that the back, I agree 100% with what Frank was saying about the expression. I think that practically speaking, that would mean that you shift your balconies off that center line, that you really express the center line as a seam, whether it's with a gutter or a reveal or some other device, or facade, spacing of windows, things like that. Something that would recognize that this is holding the place of two buildings and maintaining the rhythm created by the other buildings in the row. It's a remarkably intact row. The buildings are uniform. There are relatively few rear yard additions here. So one of the things that Landmarks holds as a kind of constant standard is the maintenance of continuity in the rear yard facades of buildings. Our typical standard is that the top floor of the plane of the donut, the rear facade, be maintained. Here, the applicant is showing a quote unquote 5-story rear yard addition, which is really just their buildings bigger. So there's no expression of an addition. There's no notion of holding on to that datum, which I think is something that we ask of all applicants, and I don't see why this should be different. I don't see conditions on the block or on the row that would argue for this being a valid exception to that standard. So I think that in this case, the fourth floor, I guess, the third floor should be set back to align with its neighbors. And the fourth floor should be, if retained, along, set back at least 3 feet from that plane, as is our typical standard when looking at rooftop additions. Mark's idea about reducing the height, no brainer, totally do it. I think that in terms of the front portion of the rear yard of the rooftop addition, I think that the applicant should construct some kind of rudimentary mock-up or corner, or just like, throw a stick up in the air and take a picture of it, and so that we can all see that the wireframe renderings that they provide are in fact supported, and the staff can check it out as they usually do. I think that the comments from the testimony about the front wall are certainly worth considering. This building it looks like it's being, it has considerable masonry in it. It's got a masonry rear wall. It's got masonry side walls. Having the front wall to be masonry as a sturdy construction is consistent with other comments that we've made over time, that we try to have new buildings in historic districts built in a sturdy and quality manner. So I don't mind the stucco exterior, but I do think that a masonry base for that is probably not out of order. And I think that the applicant should work with staff on the cornice material. I haven't myself heard of the term used for the cast-in-place cornice. That's usually associated with formed concrete, but if they've got some good idea that we should know about, I think that's great. But if not, then there are plenty of standard cornice materials that staff can help them with.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I think my two fellow commissioners have covered all the ground that there is to cover. I only have one issue. My issue is the stoops. I think we should have 2 stoops rather than 1.
Thank you. Commissioner Akumbe?
Yes, I'm going to echo mostly what the other commissioners have stated. The bulk of the building, especially in the rear, it's too much. It should actually maintain some continuity of the existing space. I also believe that each of the lots, I guess it's probably merged right now, but they should read as 2 individual buildings just to hold the context. For the stoop, I can see 1 stoop, but I believe, as Commissioner Mann stated, maybe something creative needs to be done to express something else. Is to just kind of keep in line the rhythm that's already happening on the street. For the most part, I believe the building, I guess as expressed, it's too tall. So a floor does need to be lowered. And as stated before, that the top floor should match the existing floors of the adjacent buildings.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, thank to the applicant and all of the people who have provided commentary to provide context on the project. I understand that this is a challenging project, especially when you're trying to deal with today's challenges while also meeting some of the requirements of landmarks and making sure that these buildings kind of fit aesthetically without necessarily functioning the same way they used to. But I think the rhythm is 100% thrown off. And I think the design of it kind of throws it off even more without having the stoops. It's implied, which I think probably does it a disservice. And so it's very hard for me to see the building without 2 stoops. Definitely, I think even from looking at the drawing, if you shift the ramp over 5 to 6 feet, you can definitely get at least 1 stoop, and it doesn't really change your design too much. But I think there is an opportunity possibly to have 2 stoops if the ramp is probably put somewhat on the inside, and having the entrance as on the same plane as the ground level. But but I think there needs to be more study there to really capture what this building used to be by just adding the stoops. And I do understand the challenge that it is, but I do think there is a path to get there. And again, going back to the rhythm of the block and this being two buildings, I do think that the cornices should be studied and separated somehow so that it does read as two buildings, because it's implied on every other floor except once it gets to the cornices, reading as if it's one building, and it doesn't necessarily work with the entire block. The windows at the ground floor not having that consistency of these rows going from side to side, I think is awkward, and I think that should be studied to see how you can kind of make sure that rhythm still flows from top to bottom. The height of the building, it's not necessarily about the number of feet above the adjacent building. I'm just concerned of how visible it is, and I don't necessarily trust the diagrams too much. Not saying they're wrong, but I just need to see more similar to what Commissioner Goldblum said, more proof that we're not going to see the top of this building. And then in terms of the rear facade, I kind of agree with all of the comments made prior. It still should read as two buildings, so I think there should be some work done with these balconies if they're necessary for the program, but also the top floor. I think the rear approach should be treating this as if it was a rear yard extension, and figuring out how do you match the building on the left and the building on the right in terms of the depth of that wall. Those are my comments.
Thank you. I'm just going to add a thought or two. I agree with my fellow commissioners. You made what is an appropriate decision on the front facade to try and recreate what was there, but then you didn't do it fully. And so there are the missing windows on the ground floor. I think one stoop would be all right. There is no, besides the cornice, typically when you have two buildings, there is some sort of joint between the buildings. There is no joint line between the buildings. And so if you're going to try to recreate it, you need to be more accurate or go the whole way. I mean, there are other ways to go of which would potentially be appropriate of a more modern facade. But if you're trying to do what you're doing, you need to do the whole way. And then the rooftop addition should look like two rooftop additions, not one, to follow on that. And I agree that the top floor of the rear needs to be set back and probably of a different material. So given that I don't think we have the votes to support this, even with modifications, we'll have you go back and develop the design, and when you're ready, come back for us to review. Thank you.
All right, we'll continue with the agenda. And as previously noted, we're not going to be presenting public meeting item number 2, LPC 26-06533. That's 354 Bowery, not to be presented today, and we'll see that at a future public meeting. We'll now move to public meeting item number 3. That's LPC 26-00925. This is an application for a binding report in the Borough of Manhattan. It pertains to multiple intersections within the street plan of New Amsterdam, Colonial, New York, individual landmark. It's a pattern of streets, the only remaining above-ground physical evidence of the Dutch colonial presence in Manhattan. The application is to establish a master plan governing the future construction of curb extensions into the street bed. This was read into the record at the public hearing of March 17th, 2026. However, it was not presented at that time and no testimony was taken. We'll have the applicant present this proposal in just a minute, but I will note that Commissioner Ginsburg has to recuse from this item. So once again, we will only have 5 commissioners and not a quorum, so we will not be able to act on this item at this time, but we will go ahead and have the presentation made and take any testimony nonetheless. So we'll open the hearing.
So let's open the hearing. Commissioner Kembe, would you make a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
So second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're open.
All right, thank you, commissioners. How are you all doing today? My name is Nick Petnati. I'm Deputy Director of Urban Design at New York City DOT. I'll try to be brief and get through this, but I appreciate taking the time. As was mentioned, we're here today to talk about an overall approach that we're looking to take within the individual landmark that is the street plan of New Amsterdam and Colonial, New York. It's a very unique landmark in the city. It's the only individually landmarked street grid. We have historic districts and scenic landmarks that involve streets, but this one is unique in this aspect. We don't have many individual landmarks other than our bridges that we come and talk to you about. So we're excited to be here. A lot has changed sorry, just to orient, right? We're looking basically at Lower Manhattan. It's a set of streets that have been here for a very long time. We're taking sort of a two-step approach. We have specific intersections that we're going to go over with you today, where we're working with the Department of Design and Construction, and we have colleagues on the Zoom here. Lauren is here to answer any questions. But we also wanted to show sort of the overall district in that there have been changes over time, right? Mobility has changed, we've made improvements, and so we want to really take a more comprehensive look and present to you our kind of prototypical approach to how we want to make curb changes within this individual landmark while still respecting the historic condition. These are the 5 locations that we'll be talking to you more specifically about. So Broadway and Rector, Hanover and Pearl, Broadway and Beaver, Bridge and Whitehall, and Broadway and Wall. But before we get to that, we'll lay out sort of the overall objectives. Again, we are making these specific upgrades at the corners to bring them into compliance with ADA, right? We have to make sure that the pedestrian ramps there are installed and can accommodate people with disabilities as well as all sorts of users. We want to make sure we're installing ADA compliant features in terms of the materials. So you'll see detectable warning surface, standard pedestrian ramps, standard crosswalk markings. And then we're also appealing to the commission for, again, approval of a prototypical approach for how we actually pursue these curb extensions, where we're extending the curb into the roadway to provide for safer crossings. Here are some examples of what you might see if you're walking the streets today. Again, over time, DOT has made these changes in paint to really accommodate safer pedestrian movements, right? These are areas that there's a lot of conflict, a lot of people, a lot of cars, a lot of movement. And so by extending the curbs and shortening these crossing distance, we provide priority to the pedestrians, we increase their visibility, we make it so it's safer overall to walk in this part of the city, where again, we have a lot of pedestrians. This has all been done in paint, right? It's all markings. And so what we're looking to do is now actually raise this to the level of the sidewalk and make them concrete. But we want to do it in a sensitive manner. Part of this is to address accessibility requirements, right? We have to make these upgrades to ensure that our streets are compliant with the Americans with Disability Act, allowing wheelchair users and others to traverse. And we do have some precedent for how this has been done in the district so far. This is an example along Broad Street. This was brought to you many years ago, where we have sort of the existing condition on Broad Street. This is an area that's actually closed off to vehicles. It's within the security zone around the stock exchange. And there was a proposal at the time to create sort of a wider pedestrian area that you can see here. We'll go to the next slide just to give you a quick zoom in. So this is a location where the existing sidewalk was expanded. We kept the curb in place, raised the roadbed to the level of the sidewalk, and created this new place for people to sit, right? So this is out there. This is very similar to the sort of prototypical approach we want to take at curb extensions. So the idea here is we would maintain the existing curb, keep that historic condition. Then we would build out the curb extension with a tinted concrete, so that way it sort of stands apart. And then we would install a new granite curb for the new curb line, install the ADA compliant ramp. It would be a white detectable warning surface. And that would then complete sort of the prototypical approach. And we have these at corners. And then we also have a mid-block treatment because we have both mid-block and corner crossings within the district. So that is the prototypical approach. Again, wanting to respect the existing curb line, make sure we maintain that so that there is that clear indication of what the curb line was. The individual landmark is based on the curb locations, right? So we felt that that was very important to keep. At the same time, we wanted to recognize the changing uses and mobility patterns and provide these safety treatments to allow for folks to really maneuver these streets in a way that is better overall. And so here are some of the details just in terms of how that would be constructed. Happy to go and talk through this in any greater detail. And then again, so that's the approach we want to take for any curb changes that we're looking to make within the individual landmark. We do have 5 specific locations that are in various stages of design at the Department of Design and Construction. So these are funded. These will be rebuilt in the near future. And so we just wanted to walk that through as well. So the first location here is at Broadway and Rector. We're looking at the sort of far side of this image. This is just to give you sort of the overall context of the intersection. And then here are the 2 specific locations for the ramps. You can see the painted space. So this will be sort of one long curb extension that connects both ramps. We maintain that existing curb, install the new pedestrian ramps, and bring the curb out to what you see as that double white line in the image. Same idea. So again, I'll move through these quickly, but we can come back to any location if you have more questions. This is at Hanover and Pearl. This is actually right across the street from DOT's headquarters, so I walk by this every day. And we're looking at this painted extension here. Same idea, right, where we would be building out that curb extension, adding the new pedestrian ramps, but maintaining the existing curb line. Here we have Broadway and Beaver. Same kind of concept. Here are the locations for the pedestrian ramps that we would be building out. Then we have Bridge and Whitehall, same concept. This was one of the pictures that we looked at actually earlier. So the painted areas that we would be building out and adding pedestrian ramps to. And then we have Broadway and Wall, sort of the final location. And here are the locations for the pedestrian ramps. So you can see that double white line and the painted space that we would be building out. And that's it. Again, happy to answer any questions or get into any more detail.
Questions? Commissioner Jefferson.
So you're building out, walk me through the reasoning, the concept for this change, because I see it all over the city and I don't quite understand. What's the functional reason that you're making this change?
So the primary reason for the curb extensions and
Fill me in though.
yeah, sure. We'll look here, right? Is this okay?
The other one, there's another, go one more. Okay, say this one.
So yeah, so again, in general, the curb extensions do a number of things for us, right? So first and foremost, they're shortening the crossing distance that pedestrians have to cross in order to get from one side to the other, right? So right now, if a pedestrian is crossing this street, they have to wait back at the sidewalk, right? Assuming the painted space wasn't there, right? They would have to wait at the sidewalk. Now with this new space, they can wait much closer to the opposing street. This also increases visibility of pedestrians, right? So instead of them being behind parked cars or behind something that might otherwise be occupying the curb, again, people drive up to the curb to drop people off all the time. Sometimes that happens in crosswalks, even though we don't want it to. There's any number of reasons where, visibility gets impacted. And so having the pedestrian actually further out allows drivers that are coming or the pedestrian to see both people, right? Drivers and pedestrians, cyclists, everybody to see each other much more clearly.
So
And we
this-
have lots of data that shows these kinds of treatments do result in fewer injuries, fewer issues across the city.
So this is distance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that's the only issue then is distance?
Correct. Yeah. The distance is one of the primary driving factors, right? Creating that shorter distance. This also in generally has the ability, has the other intended effect of slowing turning vehicles, right? If they don't have a very wide radius to make a quick turn, it forces the vehicles to make a more deliberate turn, typically at slower speeds, which also reduces the chance for conflict.
So what happens with the bicycle path? Because I get confused when I see the bicycle path coming,
Mhm.
extends out.
So in this case, there's in all of these 5 locations, there's no bike conflict. The one that was further up here, you'll see the bike lane will still remain outboard of the curb extension. So you can see it's sort of in the if we go back to the context image, whoops. Right, so you can see there's a protected bike lane that runs through here. In terms of this actually being built, that protected bike lane still remains on the roadway side. So we're bringing the pedestrians out a little bit in building this curb extension, right? But we're not impacting the flow of cyclists there. And this is akin to many bike lanes that we see throughout the city.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Wilder?
For Corey, this being designated, what exactly is in our scope to review?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, it's really the expression of the street grid, I think realized, as was noted, by the curb line. So in cases when the commission has reviewed changes within that, they've often, I think sought to make sure that that curb line expression is maintained, even if there are protrusions or intrusions within the grid itself. And so sometimes that's with particular materials that are being used. Sometimes that's with redundancy of curbs. But I think almost always something that allows the grid to be legible. And in addition, just one more thing with that is, if there were disturbances to the roadbed itself, in other ways, we'd kind of look at that versus something that might just sit upon it.
So the painted aspect of it, because it's not physical, doesn't really disrupt the grid, or was that approved at some point as well?
I'm not sure that we ever reviewed the painted aspect of it. Nick may actually know, but that may be part of the citywide treatment for certain elements that are just painted on and are obviously reversible to a large extent.
Yeah, and this landmark is quite interesting in that there's a specific call out in the designation report that says materials are not sort of the focus of the designation. It's really the construct of the street grid. So we've always interpreted that meaning that the painted, whether it's our crosswalk markings, the painted space, like that's just a material distinction. We're not actually altering the physical representation of the grid.
Thanks for the presentation.
Of course.
So to that point, despite the commentary about materials, materials are in fact the way that the expression of the grid will be read. So I was just hoping you could clarify the materials in each of these bands. So there's this existing curb, which will remain and kind of be a, kind of a tattoo, within the newly widened sidewalk. What material is that? You said there's a new tinted concrete sidewalk. Does that have a specific relationship to the existing sidewalk that is consistent in everything you showed us, or is that existing sidewalk sometimes different materials? Is it ever stone? So maybe you could just clarify like those materials in these different sort of strata, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. Sorry for the oversight. So in general, the majority of sidewalks throughout this individual landmark are concrete. There are a few places where we see some stone, right? The Hanover Square Memorial has stone sidewalks, for example, but by and large, they are all concrete of varying tints. There's not necessarily a consistent tint. The proposed existing curb material, for the most part, is granite throughout the district, and we are intending to remain or keep that as granite. The extension, our proposal was to treat it uniformly with a tinted concrete to try to differentiate it, or at least have some consistency. Wherever there is that extension, it would be in the tinted concrete, the standards that we've worked out with landmarks. And then the outer curb would also be granite to maintain that materiality. There are a few locations where the street name is etched into the curb. This was a project of the Downtown Alliance a number of years ago. And our intent at this point is to take those existing etchings and move them to the new pedestrian ramp. So we would keep that detail as well.
Couple of questions for me. Go to page 10 of 27, please. It's the one with the typical corner and the proposed 4-7 pigment, New York Historical. There you go. Okay, so you see how the granite shadow curb, the inner curb, kind of diagonally stripes across the ramp. How's that going to work in real life?
Yeah, this is it's a fair point and a detail that I think we would look to refine. We would probably shift that, either shift that ramp or make sure that the curb is a clear expression. Appreciate that though.
No worries.
Yep.
Then in several of the photos, I noticed that the rise of the hump in the road, I'm sure there's a technical term for that. Crown. The rise of the crown in the road is very close, it exceeds the level of the sidewalk very quickly. What happens when you extend the sidewalk into the road when the road is actually higher than the sidewalk?
So in most cases, we'll still make sure that there is an appropriate reveal, right? We can do that a number of ways, right? Depending on what the backup sidewalk elevation is, we can change the pitch of the overall sidewalk because this whole corner quadrant will be reconstructed just for clarity. So we'll go all the way back to the property line to rebuild that. So that gives us a little bit of a way to play with the grades to make sure we still maintain that reveal. Obviously, that's very case by case.
Yeah.
But we'll always ensure that there is a reveal for drainage purposes.
Last question is, I always imagine, and you can certainly correct me when I'm wrong, that part of the function of curbs was to keep cars off the sidewalk. It's kind of a safety thing so that a car knows, hey, I'm not supposed to go here and run over people. I'll stay on the road. When these larger areas kind of dive down to meet the road, is there a safety issue with cars kind of clipping them and hitting people?
Are you referring to the painted areas that we have currently, or
Well,
the
the painted areas you have currently, and this being a kind of formalization of those areas where there's really no level distinction between where the pedestrians go and where the cars go.
So I guess in this instance where we are proposing the curb extension, we do want to raise that to sidewalk level and maintain that curb. So there would still be that same vertical delineation. Obviously, at the pedestrian ramps, we need to drop that down to allow for ADA access.
Yeah.
Those tend to be fairly narrow though, right? It's a 3 or 4 foot wide ramp at most. And so generally speaking, we don't see the kind of vehicular intrusion into those places. But that very reason is why those painted spaces are not as effective as they could be.
Okay.
Right? And why we do want to build them out formally.
Great. And the last one, the ramps, I've seen a lot of ramps in the city go up with like red pads.
Yep.
Are those pads going to be red here?
They will be white here.
White here.
So because of the tinted concrete, we have to provide a color contrast. That's one of the ADA requirements.
Right.
So where we do the tinted concrete, we can install white DWS. Where it's unpigmented or your plain vanilla concrete, that's where you'll see the red DWS.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Roberto.
The curb, why keep it? Why not just remove it?
So, I mean, to some extent, selfishly, we'd be happy to remove the existing curb because it's less complicated from a construction perspective. But I think our intent was because that is the legal boundary of the designated landmark, we wanted to keep a representation of it there. Yes.
Any other questions? All right, let's see about testimony. Is there anyone in the room here to testify on this topic? Nobody appears to be. Is there anyone online?
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function.
Okay.
Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 1 and Victorian Society of New York recommends approval.
Okay, well, I don't imagine you have anything to say, but if you want to say anything else, now's your time.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Okay, let's, we close the hearing. Let's close the hearing. All right. Commissioner Wilder, will you make that motion?
So moved.
Jefferson, will you second, please?
So second.
Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So any opposed? Okay. So since we don't have a quorum, we're just going to make comments, and we'll when we have a quorum, we will revisit this project, but it'll make things a little faster if we do our commenting now. Frank, go first again.
Happy to. This was very interesting. I learned a lot. Thank you very much. seems very thoughtful and clearly the right thing to do to improve safety and do it in a historically appropriate manner. So I think this looks great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, same comments. Very interesting. Learn something new every day. And I thanks for pointing out all of the challenges with this, because I think we walk around and always wondering what people are thinking. So it's good to get some insight on this stuff. Or not. So yeah, I think from what I understand, everything is appropriate.
Overall, I'm understanding the intent to create I guess, a more pleasant pedestrian experience, and safety being one of the major factors in it. I guess especially in this part of the city where the streets aren't as grid-like as the rest of it, and I guess which there are some blind corners and things of that nature as well. Just overall, and also trying to keep the value of the existing streetscape appropriate.
Carefully considered and appropriate.
All right. 2 cents for me. I think that this is what's interesting. I don't disagree with what anyone had said. What's interesting to me is how this district is designated. It's like, it's not a building, it's not an artifact, it's not something that you can kind of put your hands on and say it's made out of X. It's a map. And seeing how that kind of manifests itself in bricks and mortar or concrete and granite is kind of interesting, but very conceptual and very unusual. And it kind of makes me think, what other things could we designate in such a way that gives them the freedom to be modified in this way, but yet holds on to the history? So it's kind of worth thinking about. I have some thoughts on it, but all right, we'll let that go for another time. All right, so let's close the hearing, and do we need to actually move to do that, or it's done? Yeah, I did. So then we'll see you when we see you.
All right, so taking no action at this time, but we'll revisit this at a future time and or date. All right, we'll now move to public meeting item number 4. That's LPC 26-02405, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 793, Lot 56, 130 and 132 West 18th Street, the 130 and 132 West 18th Street Stables Building individual landmark. This is 2 round-arched utilitarian-style carriage houses with Renaissance Revival and Romanesque Revival style details, built in 1864 to 65 and combined in 1907. The application is to install storefront infill and construct a rooftop addition. This was last presented at the public hearing of January 13, 2026. No action was taken at that time. The applicants will present revisions to the proposal after we open the proceedings.
Should we get Mark back? Do we have to get a quorum? Right. So in the meantime, let's open the proceedings. Commissioner Kembe, you want to make a motion?
So moved.
Wilder,
Second.
all in favor? Any opposed? All right, we're open. Okay, why don't you go ahead?
Hello, everybody. You can hear me, right? Yes. Good morning. My name is Koray Duman. I'm an architect and the applicant for a facade renovation and vertical extension at 130-132 West 18th Street. I'm here with my client, Ardis Sarazi, and our structural engineer, Sahir Shatari from Thailand Engineering. Our proposal reflects the historical adaptive reuse of a carriage house with a north-facing Ardis studio skylight. The commissioners in previous presentation were supportive of the vertical extension. However, they asked us to investigate options for less visibility. They also asked us to clarify the proposal on the ground floor facade. We are here today with a revised proposal that directly responds to the commission's comments by reducing visibility, simplifying the intervention, and minimizing impact to the historical structure. This slide shows the existing conditions. Our building at the center is an individually landmarked carriage house. Actually, it's two carriage houses combined. To the left is another individually landmarked carriage house with a historic second floor addition. And to the right is a new theater building currently under construction. The black outline shows the silhouette of the new building. You see the previous proposal on the left and the new one on the right. In response to the Commission's feedback, we have reduced the visible height of the addition by approximately 30%, lowered the overall roof line so that it now sits closer to the existing roof line and further below the viewing plane, make it only minimally perceptible from the public way. We also, as mentioned in the previous presentation, utilized the City of Yes provision, reducing the rear setback from 30 feet to 20 feet. We are also going to provide more clarification on all elements being restored and opening heights relative to the historical record and street datum. And we adjusted the roof material to a zinc standing seam metal with a low reflective finish consistent with the building's industrial character. I also again want to mention here that our addition will be an infill between two buildings. And as you can see in the rendering on the right, as we start lowering the addition, you can see that the building behind starts to fill in the background. Like to come, Sahir? Oh, Sarah. Oh, Sarah, yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sarah Z. I'm an artist, and I am the owner of 18th Street. And my studio is made of 6 full-time employees. We work in sculpture, painting, and we do public works. When I purchased the building, it was in grave disrepair, and we immediately moved into it and made it a working studio. A lot of the things that we do are one-to-one scale models, and we work on scales that are often, public spaces. So the space has become actually too tight for the projects that we're doing. We have dedicated spaces to woodworking, to video, to painting, and to public works. And all of those spaces have expanded, and a large office space that we have there as well. Are you doing the slides? Sorry, I didn't. Okay, great. So you can see this is the studio now as it's being used. When I got the space, the skylights had fallen in, was raining into the space. We had to replace the second floor. It was a carriage house, which many of you may know, the floors actually had a V on the second floor because the horses, was for the horses. I didn't know that. The horses, when they need to actually have a trough, at the floor, and all of that had to be replaced. We did that immediately and moved in, and we've been making projects there for the last 4 years. Do we have more slides? Sorry. That's it. Okay. I am requesting to make an extension so that we can actually stay there. Gotten to a point where, in order to do the work that we need more space, more studio space, and we just need, for example, that height. We need that double height space we need for the architectural spaces that we're making work for, and we work one-to-one scale with our models or with our paintings. I would say that I'm very committed to this building. I purchased it for the purpose of actually making it a beautiful building inside and out. We are working in it and have been working in it, and we're very committed to making the outside beautiful for the neighborhood, and making a respectful extension to allow us to stay here and be in the city. I've lived and worked here for 30 years, and I think it's a very special neighborhood. It's historically an artist neighborhood. This actual space was used by artists since the 1970s, so it has that character. And I think preserving the Chelsea neighborhood as a place where artists can live and work is something that's important to me in the neighborhood I'm in. Thank you very much.
In our renovation in the ground floor, we are proposing a light touch intervention that avoids invasive work and minimizes impact of any existing plumbing, mechanical or historical fabric of the building. These plans show the existing and the proposed. As you can see, the interior work in the ground floor and first floor will be very surgical. The ground floor and first floor layouts remain mostly unchanged, preserving the double height sculpture studio. We are adding only a new elevator and a second egress stair. Previous structural investigations also identified a footing of a removed column at the front part of the building. We are adding a new wood column in that location, which is really important for our vertical addition. First floor remains unchanged, a part of the elevator and the courtyard staircase. And the new second floor becomes the painting studio. The mezzanine becomes a living space, and the glass floors you see going along the window openings are to bring natural light into the sculpture studio below. The previous proposal that we had a 10 feet setback at the front and was 50.5 inches above the viewing plane to provide headroom for the staircase. This is the section that was presented last time. It also provided a 9 feet 4 inches clearance inside on the north-facing facade. Following generous ceiling, we undertook a full structure study of every messing options, including the setback question raised by the commissioner. We find out that any alternatives would require structural intervention into the historical building, which could cause damage into the historic fabric of the building, which we are intentionally avoiding with this proposal. We are also trying to avoid an underpinning of the existing foundations. And to talk about that, I'm going to invite our engineer, Sahir, here to talk about the structure of the new addition.
So the structural analysis tells us that existing walls and footings are
Excuse me,
currently.
Could you just state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Sahil. I work for TYLN. I'm a structural engineer. So structural analysis tells us that existing walls and footings are currently very near their maximum capacity, especially since the adjacent buildings have already extended respective buildings with the overbuild, as we are proposing here. We reviewed the boring tests and soils reports. So there is that load limitations based on the soils there. So there isn't much play for alternative schemes. That's what the structural analysis is telling us. The vertical addition wants to be mass timber because it is lighter than common alternative materials. It gives us the best chance to avoid reinforcement of existing historic fabric below. Mass timber is a prefabricated material, and as such, it will allow for rapid installation of the vertical addition, which in turn will minimize disruption to the street, to the historic neighborhood, and to Sarah's work. The massing of the vertical addition wants to be as spread out across the footprint of the existing building roof as much as possible, as this gives us the best chance of distributing the load with a lighter touch to the existing structure below. The more condensed the overbuild, the more concentrated the overbuild mass becomes on the existing structure below. Reinforcement of the existing structure not only disturbs historic fabric, it unnecessarily adds cost and embodied carbon to the project.
In this section, I also want to clarify that this column line that you see here is the new column that we are putting on the existing foundation in the middle, which aligns directly with the roof line above for our addition. To summarize the revised proposal, front setback is still 10 feet unchanged. We do have the real setback as 20 feet by the new City of Yes setback rules. But we lowered the roof line to 35 feet 2 inches and try to minimize it as much as possible. Looking at the sideline analysis from the side work, the addition clears the parapet by only 2 feet 11 inches. This is a silver of the sloped glaze skyline. The visibility has been reduced by approximately 30% from the previous proposal. With this proposal, we are only providing 7 feet 10-inch clearance inside the north facade to look out. In these renderings that you see here, you see the markup on the left and our proposal. The landmark facade is fully restored. The addition is much more minimal in the skyline. Same sidewalk position, same viewing angle. The improvement is what we believe is visible and measurable. The commission asked us to reduce visibility, which we did. And the lower roof line, with less breaking the viewing plane, geometry is much more clear. These are the comparisons between the previous and new. And you can see the lowering and the dimensions of both the new and the previous proposal. The material palette is restrained and historically sympathetic. Restored historic brick facade will be cleaned and repointed to match existing. Zinc standing seam metal roof is proposed for the slope roof, which is dark, non-reflective, and it also matches the zinc-coated metal window mullions. Existing gray paint maintained on door frames and medallions underneath. The gray granite at ground floor steps will be matched to existing. The material palette is intentionally restrained and industrial. Zinc, neutral tones, matte finishes. These materials were selected to reduce contrast and visual prominence and to align with the utilitarian character of the historic stable buildings. We are also showing here the wall section that also shows the CLT system with the slope CLT roof deck and glue lamp girders and the Kavnaugh grazing with zinc gray finish framing. The depth of the CLT assembly is what also produces the limitations for lowering it down and also for the visibility of the project. These are actual photographs of the markup right now in the building. As an infill, the site of the addition will not be visible when approaching from either side of the street. The angle of the slope roof is below the viewing line. As you can see on the bottom right, that's the section of the roof line, but none of them is visible from the street. Only the the front facade will be visible as shown in the renderings. I just want to now also talk a little bit about to clarify the storefront requested the previous presentation. Sorry. The facade work restores the building historical character by establishing original carriage openings, aligning with historical datum lines along the street, and preserving evidence of the 1907 alteration. This approach balances restoration and historical continuity. The two carriage houses were converted into a car repair garage in 1907 when a large central opening was created. The earliest tax photo from 1939 shows the building combined and facade altered. Based on the adjacent building, we assumed the original facade had two large openings for carriages with doors and windows on either side. We would like to remove the lintel on the left side to restore the opening's original height and to create symmetry. We propose leaving the central lintel to register the historical modification. There's also two cast iron columns that were introduced in the 1907 modification. We are proposing the keeping and repairing them. This is what currently the facade is on the right top, and the one that we are proposing is on the right bottom. As you can see also in this rendering is that the height of the large openings for carriages matches that of other buildings on the same street, providing an intact datum line. This is the existing facade, and this is the new proposed facade. One thing that I also want to mention is that the two carriage houses are slightly off in the width. we did look into potentially to put a vertical mullion in the middle of the central opening to register the delineation, but because of the asymmetry, it didn't look good. So we propose to keep the opening there as it currently. Commissioners, we ask you to approve this application because it represents the minimum necessary intervention while providing the client the very necessary space she needs to continue work in the building. Fewer structure interventions been made. The CLT system on 4 historical column and resting on the existing brick walls is the safest path for to not disturb the historic structure. It is less visible than what we showed in January with a markup in the field to prove. A north-facing skylight that makes sense reflects the adaptive reuse from stable to artist studio, consistent with typologies this commission has approved repeatedly across the city, including carriage houses in Brooklyn and artist studios throughout Manhattan. The addition will continue the building's 50-year history as an artist studio. The north-facing skylight references this tradition. And we believe this is a rare opportunity to restore a designated landmark to its best condition and to keep a world-class artist and her employees working in downtown New York. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner.
Thank you for the presentation. I just had a question about the additional study that you guys did, the 10 feet further additional study that's not proposed. Can you talk about the challenges of taking that approach versus going this route?
We're talking about this one. So I would say the main challenges is that we are not utilizing the 4th column, and as our structure engineer mentioned, that it gets condensed, so it has more of weight per square foot into the building.
And to add to that, like this structure is going to sit on basically existing walls and these posts. We're going to add a post in the front of the building where there's already an existing foundation. Clearly, there used to be a post there. So with this scheme, essentially what you're saying is the load would be distributed amongst 3 posts instead of 4, and that causes issues with strength because there are less posts which are handling the total mass for the overbuild.
So are you saying it's not feasible to add any more posts, or that's going to damage?
No, it is about the weight distribution for this overbuild. So we're trying to bring it a little bit further to the front because we can add a post there and distribute load over 4 posts and not just like 3 posts. Yeah.
So the posts that are there are wooden posts, and then they have a cast metal iron base to them. As Corey said, one of them was taken out, and we're replacing it. So we're trying not to just add like
You're
poles.
using what's existing versus adding anything.
Well, there's one that was taken out, so that's the front. We found that out, and so we're adding it back. But we don't want to add like tons, like even the inside. We want to keep what's left of that's left the building actually.
I also want to mention that we do need to keep the staircase existing on the ground floor, so it does still stays visible, and then the form above is actually not as clean as the previous, like what we are proposing.
Any other Commissioner Jefferson?
If you go to page 18, and your roof system, can you reduce the structure in your roof to somewhat? It looks like it has a structure, and then there's kind of a finished ceiling of some amount of. Can you reduce the thickness of that?
I don't see the 18 here. If you can just.
Is this what you're looking for, Commissioner Jefferson?
you see the sight line,
Yes.
and I was trying to figure out if there was a way that you could reduce the thickness of the roof system some way, so that you just won't see anything.
So I want to mention two things here. One of them is that we finish our schematic design. So we want to go to landmarks and then finalize our construction drawings, and we can absolutely look into investigate that. But there are two restrictions. One of them is at this point, we have the clearance that we have for looking out to 7 feet 10. We might potentially reduce the CLT details, but it will give just a couple of inches, not more than that. So the overall visibility, and we don't know if we can do that, but if we were to do that, it won't make a big difference.
But you could study moving it out more too, to the right, no? Because I'm just trying to figure out a way to
So,
less visible, because it.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, so one, so the structure for the roof is the driving force for the roof assembly thickness, of course. And as I mentioned, the chosen structural system here is CLT and glulam, because mass timber is lighter and we cannot overburden walls and foundations because very limited capacity for what used to be a carriage house. So we can take a closer look at our glulam beams layout, and CLT thickness, 3-ply CLT is that it is, I think, 4 inches roughly. But what we can do is potentially have more glulam beams to shave off what would be 2 inches, 3 inches. So it's going to be in the realm of 2 to 3 inches, even if we do that.
Can I follow up on that, Commissioner Jefferson? Could you upset the beam into the roof more to reduce in effect, dropping the roof down? So instead of the structure sitting on top of the beam, it was picked up by angles at the beam?
So technically, it is possible to upset CLT into glulam beam. What that would essentially do is it would make every CLT panel a simply supported single span. So we lose some capacity on the CLT there. It's not a continuous beam essentially.
Right.
But that is something we can look at. Of course, that also means if you're adding angles to glulams, there's more steel and embodied carbon related to it, and there's more work, but certainly we can look at that detail.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have anyone in the room who would like to? What? No testimony. Okay. Do we need to make a motion to close or? Okay. Commissioner Jefferson, would you start our comments, please?
Just start.
Yes,
Okay.
we seem not to need to do anything but comment.
I think I can accept this proposal. My only issue was that last week or 2 weeks ago, we had a similar condition that you could see the additional rooftop structure. And we were very kind of conservative about that one. We wanted it to be pushed back. And I thought here would be a simple matter structurally to push it back. So if you go back to the original view, let me step back. Even when we were looking at it, this is the original view. You're seeing the building in the back, the gray building in the foreground, in the background. When we passed it originally, I was always concerned that there was too much visibility of the penthouse structure. And I thought, if we're going to be rigid about that, how can we, and it's a simple matter of just shifting the structure. Why not do that? But, so that's my comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Kambay?
Overall, I like the approach that was used, especially really looking at the existing building, its materiality, and how to build upon that. Using the wood structure for the addition, it makes sense. Not even just sustainability-wise, but just thinking about the loading and the neighbors that are around. So I like that decision. I'm actually fine with the addition. I think it's pleasant. I enjoy the materiality of it as well. And it's minimally visible. So I can find that acceptable. I think the only thing is on the elevations. I think it was a good move to add the cast iron pillars. It brings some depth to the facade, and but I think on the side panels could use a little more articulation to kind of bring a little more life into this.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilder.
Yeah, I agree with most of the comments. It, I can appreciate the attempt to reduce the overall height. I understand that the challenge structurally of trying to not disrupt or add as much new structure as possible. And because of those reasons, I think I can overall accept it. Not not as visible as it was before. I think it's still fairly visible, but I think I can find it appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Mayhem.
I think this is a very nice project. And what it accomplishes is meaningful and significant for the owner and her ability to, keep the making of art in this neighborhood in the city. I appreciate that the applicant was responsive by not only lowering the height, but also providing, sort of real technical explanation in the form of the structural analysis for the massing of the rooftop addition as it stands. In the appendix, there's an existing condition photo, and to my eye, the revised rooftop addition more or less doesn't create any additional visibility from the street than is already there with the adjacent building behind this particular one. I think the mass timber approach is clever. It's appropriate. It's going to be a beautiful interior space. It's the right thing to do from an embodied carbon standpoint. So many kudos there. As to the front facade, perhaps there can be a bit of debate about the nature of the detailing or the nature of the central window. I'm actually okay with it as it is. It's a bit more contemporary as opposed to sort of hewing towards, recalling, central pillar at the central, storefront light, for example. I'm okay with it as it is. This building has a subtle charm. It, is rather formal at first glance, but it's has a kind of awkward beauty, and it's like slight asymmetry. Sort of slight, lack of support at the center. It makes you do a double take, and I think that's part of its charm, and I think that is maintained and expressed in the design as proposed.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with most of what's been said. I think it's as appropriate as is. I think the applicant should, however, work with staff on the lintel above that central window to make that either painted gray or make it steel or something that gives it a little more expression. Right now, it just looks like kind of like the brown trim just kind of jumped down, which I think is not a historic condition. And it's a minor change that would just make that central oddball window more. I'm okay with the height. I think that the fact that it's between two buildings and that it's proportional height relative to the building below is quite modest. I think that it's acceptably visible. And I think it's really great that this project is going to keep an artist studio in New York City. That's becoming an unfortunately rare thing these days, and I think it's fantastic.
So I agree with my fellow commissioners, and I think we can approve this. Commissioner Jefferson, can you read the, thank you.
And Commissioner Jefferson, I think it's a motion to approve it, and we'll ask them to explore with staff the
Right.
treatment of the lower lintel in the center bay and the articulation of that window.
In the matter of LPC -26 02405, 130-132 West 18th Street, individual landmark. The 18th Street Staples building, individual landmark. I note that the building was originally constructed as two independent carriage houses, and that the large center opening at the ground floor was likely created when the building was combined in the early 1900s. I recommend approval, finding that the removal of the existing modern cladding, garage door, and security gate housing will eliminate unsympathetic alterations without causing the removal of or damage to any significant architectural feature. That the many carriage houses historically were altered to accommodate new uses, including substantial additions and modification to their roof lines, and that the proposed alterations are in keeping with that tradition of change. That the slope glazing and steeply pitched roof of the addition will recall artist studio windows sometimes added to small-scale 19th century buildings, and will help to reduce the perceived massing visible over the primary facade, and that the addition will not overwhelm the carriage houses. That the neutral, this goes on, huh? That the neutral color and finish of the matte zinc coated metal and glass addition and zinc standing seam roofing will be keeping with additions often found in buildings of this age and style, and will help it recede from view. That the carriage houses are situated between one individual landmark building with an existing highly visible rooftop addition and a non-designated building with the rooftop addition under construction, and there is currently a rooftop mast visible over the parapet belonging to an adjacent building. Therefore, the proposed work will not detract from the unified street or row. That the removal of modern cladding and restoration of the brick piers and arch opening at the westmost entrance and installation of painted wood entrance doors with arch transom at both pedestrian entrances will be called a historic infill in terms of material and basic design, and will return the building closer to a historic appearance. That raising the lintel height of the eastmost garage bay will create a more significant condition at the building base, and will be consistent with the height of the opening at other garage houses on West 18th Street. That the installation of zinc-coated metal storefront infill with minimal framing and narrow mullions recessed within the garage bay will maintain an open character consistent with the building historic use as an operational stable and garage. that the gray finish to the ground floor infill will harmonize with the existing second floor window, will help to unify the building appearance. That the work will bring the aspect of the facade closer to its historic appearance while facilitating the building's adaptive use. That the applicant, I recommend that the applicant will work with staff to incorporate contemporary articulation of the storefront frame. Is that it?
Yeah, I think that part of it, we'll have this, have the applicants explore with staff the treatment of the lower lintel and the center bay and that framing element. I do think I'm not sure we got through all the findings there. If we need to go back to the finding that starts with the raising the lintel height.
Go back. Go back to.
Yes, there are more approval findings still to go.
So do I continue reading the staff recommends, or?
We're not to that point yet. It's
Not that bad, okay.
back up just a little bit to where it says that raising the lintel height of the easternmost garage bay.
And that the work will bring aspect of the facade that way? Where am I?
Can I finish reading?
Where? Here. Which one? Raising the lintel height.
Raising?
Yeah.
The raising the lintel height of the eastmost garage bay will create a more symmetrical condition at the building base and will be consistent with the height of the opening at the other carriage houses on West 18th Street. Continue that? Oh. That the installation of a zinc-coated metal storefront infill with minimal framing and narrow molding. I thought I read this. Recessed with the garage bay and will maintain an open character consistent with the building historic use and operation stable in garage. That the gray finish for ground floor infill. That the gray finish for ground floor infill will harmonize with the existing second floor windows and will help to unify the building appearance. And that the work will bring the aspect of the facade closer to a historic appearance. Right.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
While facilitating the building's adaptive use.
Yes, thank you.
And then I go back to recommend? No.
Yeah, that's as noted, the applicants will work with staff on exploring the treatment of the lower lintel and the center bay and that window panel itself.
It should work with staff to recommend.
Commissioner Cumbay, can you second that, please?
Second.
Mark, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quembe,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 6 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved. Please continue to work with staff. We'll move to the next item. That's public meeting item number 5, LPC 26-07263, an application for an amendment. This is in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1389, Lot 50, 945 Madison Avenue, the former Whitney Museum of American Art, individual landmark, also in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is a brutalist-style museum building designed by Marcel Breuer and Associates and built in 1964 to 66. And the application is to amend Certificate of Appropriateness 26-01403 to revise installations at the Sunken Garden.
So do we need to open it now? So we need to open this now. Commissioner Wilder, can you make a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Mahan, can you second it?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The meeting is opened.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for your time. We're here to present refinements to.
Can you state your name for the record?
Okay,
Thanks.
yes. I'm Bridget Cook from PBDW Architects. I can go ahead and introduce the people with me at this point. I'm here with Amy Can from Roman and Williams, and we have Patrick Pryor from Sotheby's. Okay, so we are here to present amendments, a slight refinement to a previously approved intervention within the landmarked building at the Sunken Sculpture Garden. So the project reintroduces a restaurant and cafe and includes an updated design for the bar within this garden, which is 1 story below grade, conceived as an outdoor room. So I'm going to go over the existing conditions and then walk through the previously approved schemes and then show the final presentation that we're asking for approval for today. And first, I will like to hand it over to introduce you to our team member to say a few words. So PBDW Architects is working with the joint venture that has been formed to design this restaurant and breathe new life into this space. We have Roman and Williams together with Sotheby's in this joint venture. So I'll say a few words.
My name is Amy Can. I'm the vice president of Roman and Williams. In terms, I oversee their commercial division of design. And Roman and Williams is really one part of the partnership between Sotheby's and Roman and Williams. From early on in the process, the collaboration was very focused on continuing the legacy of the historic building while bringing art and hospitality back to the public sector as intended by Marcel Breuer. And we're really pleased and delighted to honor the heritage of the building by naming the restaurant Marcel. Thank you.
Since approval, the bar has been refined in its location, form, and material expression to better align with preservation goals and regulatory coordination. The building, as an individual landmark, has been, carefully taking into account the original materials and making sure that all interventions are reversible and nothing is permanently attached. So this is, as we go through the existing building over time, it has been historically used as an outdoor cafe in the sunken sculpture garden and has been a place for featuring sculpture. So this is what the sunken garden looks like today. Part of our project, which we presented last year, was to remove the overbuild at the planter along the street. So it's now back to its original design. And you see all the pavers, the bluestone pavers, and the flamed granite panels, along with the board form concrete that form the parapet walls along the street. This is what it looks like today. So this is our previously approved plan. So in this plan, the design was for a communal table to be centrally located under the bridge, and the bar for the restaurant is located along the south side, justified to the edge. So there's an L-shaped bar with a bar back that's attached to the granite wall. That was what we had previously. The proposed design now is to move the bar into the location where the communal table was and to remove the bar at the south side edge of the wall. So you can see the arrangement of the tables and chairs are basically the same, and we have 2 additional trees that we already have had approved that are in this garden. Where you see P represents pedestals for sculpture, but they will be moving around. So, they'll be in different arrangements. And we've coordinated that with landmarks as well. So this is a section showing the previous approved design with the bar you can see on the left-hand side up against the wall and the communal table under the bridge. And then this is the refined design with the bar located under the bridge and nothing along this wall here. And then looking back the other way, the reverse image, looking towards the building, this is what we had before, again, with the bar and the bar back. You see in dark black there up against the wall. And then now there's nothing along that wall. the tables, loose tables and chairs. So the idea is that this new shape is self-supporting and balanced, unlike the former L shape that we had that had to be supported and pinned to the back wall where we had attachments. We now have this this shape here. That's the proposal. The colors represent different components. So the idea is this is taken apart. We have bolts that hold them together so that in different seasons and if there is an event, the pieces can be taken apart, disassembled. There's a storage room right behind the south wall underneath of the south entrance for storing these elements, or also it could be shipped to their off-site storage, which they use very frequently. So this is the rendering of the previous bar design. The previous design for the bar was a plaster that was made to look like the board form concrete. It was a system that you can buy, and that was fabricated to be that. But we've really worked to come up with an actual natural material instead. We feel like that as a team, this is the new proposal. The natural material is more in keeping with the design of the building that uses, natural materials, but as they are, it's a very honest use of material. And it really is inviting for people to come out to the outdoor space under the bridge. There's also a Department of Health requirement that bars have to have a covering, and we hadn't yet gotten to figure that out yet in the previous arrangement. But here, the bridge is the cover, and we don't need a separate cover. So that solves a great solution for us as well. And then also, you can see it's more minimal in that it doesn't have this big back to it where there was going to be liquor on display. Now it's just the countertop here. So we have this Blue River marble with integrated lighting at the underside of the countertop. And then there's another integrated light strip underneath where the toe kick is. And then the edge strip of the bar counter is blackened bronze. And then the top of the bar is also the Blue River marble. And it's important to understand that this is a reflection of, another bar that's inside. So the interior bar that is in the restaurant side that's past the landmark area, but nonetheless, it's reflecting it, and they work together in tandem with the same marble. So this is a zoomed out rendering showing the reference area around it, where you see, there's no attachments. It's, sitting right on top of the bluestone that's to remain. And the angles we think works, with the existing battered edges, but in a contemporary way. So this is a contemporary piece within, this existing space. So you understand it as new, but it doesn't overpower. This is an elevation drawing showing the attachment points of the bar back in the previous scheme. And then in the right, you see there's no permanent attachments anywhere. And again, looking at it on the side. Now here's a detail showing on the left the previous design of the bar versus the proposed. You can see that it's much more minimal. There's no seating at the bar now. So there's just this 16-inch wide countertop, and there will be movable equipment behind it. Because we don't want to have any permanent plumbing or any other attachments or in the garden, we have tanks that are underneath of the bar. That's required by the Department of Health, but it's not plumbed otherwise. We don't have any openings in the stone. The only opening we had to make was for power. So we have two convenience power outlets that we need to function at the bar. And this is a view of the existing with the, called out the different materials, and then the Blue River marble that's proposed for the cladding of the bar and the countertop, along with the darkened bronze that we have throughout the building, at, the original building as the edge strip. Okay, so in conclusion, we think that this is a design that is in keeping with the original palette, but makes its mark in a contemporary way and is very respectful in its presence to the existing. It maintains the integrity of the existing sculpture garden and existing materials. We're no longer making attachments into them. And also, we think that it's going to be very inviting and bring this space back to life again. So please let us know if you have any questions.
LPC has received the following written comments after the July 22nd, 2025 hearing. Friends of the Upper East Side recommends approval.
I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. Commissioner Wilder, can you start the discussion?
Can hear you.
No, oh, sorry. Any other questions? Okay, Commissioner Wilder.
Thank you. I was wondering why we were looking at this again. But thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I think before the application was pretty strong, and I think that this one is an improvement on that in relocating the bar for all the reasons that you stated. So overall, I can find it appropriate.
Commissioner Mahan?
I think this is great, and it's an improvement from what was already proposed. It's less invasive and more discreet. It's completely movable, appropriate.
Commissioner Goldblum? Commissioner Jefferson?
Appropriate.
Commissioner Atembe?
Yes, I find it appropriate as well, and I'm glad you figured out your health department issue.
And I agree. Commissioner Wilder, can you read this, please? Motion, please.
Sure. And the matter of LPC 26-07263, 945 Madison Avenue, former Whitney Museum of American Art, Upper East Side Historic District, a brutalist style museum building designed by Marcel Brewer and Associates and built in 1964 to 1966. Application is to amend Certificate of Appropriateness 26-01403, LPC 26-01403 to revise installations at Sunken Garden. I note that the style, scale, materials, and details of this individual landmark are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not obscure, damage, or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the proposed work is below grade and beneath the pedestrian bridge entrance and therefore is not readily visible from the street, and that the modular freestanding bar will read as a discrete element that can be easily removed, that the proposed stone cladding of the bar will be harmonious and yet help differentiate the contemporary bar installation from the bronze and formed concrete features of the building, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of this individual landmark or the Upper East Side Historic District.
Commissioner Mahan, can you second it?
Second.
Mark, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Right, thank you. That's approved. We'll move to the next item. It's public meeting item number 6, LBC 26-07944, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1017, Lot 10, 249 West 45th Street, the Imperial Theater interior landmark. This is an Adamesque-style theater interior designed by Herbert J. Krapp and built in 1923. The application is to remove interior stairs, relocate historic features, and alter the rear wall. This was read into the record at the public hearing of March 17, 2026. However, it was not presented and no public testimony was taken at that time. So we'll do that today after we open the hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Oops, sorry.
We need to open the hearing. Commissioner Goldblum, can you open the hearing, please? Commissioner Jefferson, can you second?
So second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing is open.
Good morning. My name is Valerie Campbell. I am Land Use Counsel to the Schubert Organization. This application is for the Imperial Theater, which is an interior landmark. The auditorium is landmarked. It is not an exterior landmark. And last year, just here's the site plan that shows the theater. It's entered from 45th Street. The auditorium is located in the northern half of the block. Last year, the Commission approved a series of interior alterations that were designed to improve the appearance and the operation of the theater, and also facilitate a connection to a newly created annex that will provide restrooms and concession and circulation space for the audience of the theater. This work has not yet been undertaken, but is planned. This application proposes a few additional alterations that will facilitate the audience egress and ingress into the theater. Mickey Costow, the architect, will describe the proposal now.
Morning, everyone. I've been asked to keep this brief, so I'll go quickly. If you have questions, please chime in. So there are really three things that we're here to talk about today. One is the removal of a stairway that's in the historic theater. Two, modification to the egress doors that go out to 46th Street. And third is a modification of the balcony egress to try and get it a little more efficient. Let me see what I don't know if you may remember this from, some of you may remember this from a year ago, but basically the plan on the left shows in the upper left-hand corner an existing stair that we would like to remove. And in the upper right-hand corner, we're proposing that parts of that stair would be used to reconstruct an existing stair that we'll go into more in a second. Going the wrong direction, sorry. In between the balcony and the orchestra is an intermediate level, which would be affected by this. That whole area will be redesigned. I mean, basically the entrance to the balcony will now be from the new building, and this is a repurposed vomitorium that will be used as like a lounge and special event space. And this is the proposed change at the balcony level. If you can see on the plan on the left, the egress doors going into the new building are right along the wall that joins the two buildings. But we'd like to create kind of a vestibule there and move those doors in to get additional circulation space in the last row of the seating. I'm going to skip some of these because these are just existing conditions photos mostly. I can go back to them if you would like. This is the place where where we'd like to take the existing stair out. You can see the stair on the image on the right. It's very tight circulation there, 6 feet at its tightest point and 8 feet. And when there are about 700 seats at this level. So when people are coming in and out at the end of the performance, it gets very congested there. You can see here some photos of actually people coming in and out. This is a historic photo of what that space looked like when the theater opened. Our intent is to restore the wainscot and the paneling on the walls. Currently, it looks like this. We did some exploratory probes to expose the existing historic material behind the walls. So this is part of the restoration scope that was previously approved. So here you can see the top drawing is existing condition. The second was the proposed condition that we got approved last year. And the bottom image shows the removal of the stair on the left and the reconstruction of the stair on the right. Part of the intent here is to reuse the existing railings and to relocate them in the house left. Here you can see a previously approved drawing of the interior, but we've had to modify that slightly because of this, due to the removal of the stair. Basically, the line of this molding line has been moved up by about a foot. Here's an unfolded elevation, so you can see we were picking up this line before here. Now we're proposing that line just be raised up to match the side wall. Here's a photo of the existing. You can see that there's a difference in height between the two wainscots in that egress area. This is just a reflected ceiling plan to show how we would handle the ceiling. Related to this is on the house left, what we'd like to do is, let's see, this is more about the railing. Part of what we'd like to do is to recreate this railing on the other side, and we would have to splice it. We found and create a new section that would match the existing. You can see it there is about a 3-foot section. We found a good place to splice this where the actual handrail is different. So the idea would be to restore the handrail as it is on the left-hand side of the stair on the right-hand side. So it would be the same. Details of that restoration. And this is a view looking at the existing, the previously approved scheme, and on the far right, the proposed scheme with the stair removed. Skip this slide. The next issue is on the house left side where we had planned a soffit. As you can see, the upper one where we're keeping the existing exit signs, and it kind of stepped down at the last 2 doors. What we're proposing now is to create a soffit there and to have all of the exit signs in the same plane. We think it's a cleaner look and will work better for the audience, expanded seating. This is more of a detail of creating basically like a small soffit at that header and then moving the exit signs to the exterior wall. This is a rendering on the far right showing what the new stair would look like in that hallway. And then finally, a view from the other side. If you can look at the right-hand side drawing where the exit signs had been pushed to the exterior wall. Another view of that. Just think it's a cleaner look than what was proposed before. This is a view of the house, left and right, and these are the areas that would be modified. That's what the proposed modification would look like. The last part of this is at the balcony level, where these two existing egress doors, we originally had proposed to keep them and to restore them. But if you look at the floor plan, it's very tight right here. It's only about 3 feet from that railing to the wall. And when you have all these people from the balcony exiting through these doors, it just creates a congestion point. So our proposal is to actually recess that and create sort of a second vestibule there in this area. And that would give about 11 feet of clearance from the last row to the egress door. Essentially, the look within the theater would be the same. It would just be recessed like a niche, and the existing exit signs we would keep. So once again, here's the existing condition. The center was previously approved, and now what we're proposing now. So that's about as quick as I can go through it. We have questions?
Commissioners, any questions? None? Don't see anyone in the room who wants to testify. I would like to turn it over to Intergovernmental and Community Affairs, Stephen Thompson or Elizabeth Lee, to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. You'll be promoted to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be John Graham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. The Victorian Society testified favorably on the changes proposed for this interior landmark in December of 2024. Our only request then was that the historic light sconces be restored rather than replaced. This earlier testimony is appended to our written testimony on the changes now being proposed. The removal of one of the 2 original stairs at the back of the auditorium is unfortunate, but once again the applicant is doing this in a most sensitive way by using the removed elements of one stair to restore the other. On balance, we think this is appropriate. The change to the exit doors on the balcony level is likewise being handled well. We recommend, however, that the set of doors being removed be replicated as fixed panels. Without hardware on these panels, and with appropriate exit signs, we think there will not be any confusion about which pair is operable and which is fixed. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
The next speaker will be Farina Ramid.
Oh, hello. Are you talking to me?
Yes, you may begin.
Yes. I'm here to talk about.
Farina, we cannot hear you at the moment. Are you speaking? Farina, we cannot hear you at the moment. Are you speaking? Can you indicate if you can hear this? All right, we're going to move on to the next speaker. Anyone else who'd like to provide testimony, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval.
Would the applicant like to respond to any of the testimony, which in general was positive? Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Goldblum, can you close the hearing, please? Commissioner Jefferson, can you second it?
Second.
Commissioner Cumby, can you start our discussion, please? Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Cumby now.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Overall, I see the moves to be very sensitive. I appreciate the detail of actually trying to keep datum lines going across. I think it was a very, it's an efficient way to keep sight lines. So overall, I'm finding all the moves to be acceptable. Just a couple things. I guess where the stair is removed, just the ceiling plane of that area, I'd like just to see it detailed a little bit more. But I can see that it's using the existing geometries that were there. And the only other thing is that the splicing of the new stair. I don't know if you really looked at where the best place to actually do that is, or maybe it's the reasoning at that space right there. Because I guess in our diagram, it just tells us what the length is. But I guess wondering if there was anything really thought about.
They can't respond now, so, right, they can work with staff.
Yes.
Anything else, or?
Oh, no.
Okay, Commissioner Wilder?
Yes, overall, I agree. I think the applicant was really thoughtful in the approach for some of the challenges that they were addressing. I was not on this original application, but I can find the changes appropriate.
Commissioner Mayhem?
I concur with Commissioner Wilder.
Commissioner Goldblum? Commissioner Jefferson? Commissioner Tumbe, can you read the motion, please?
In the matter of LPC 2607944, 249 West 45th Street, Imperial Theater, internal landmark. An anonymous style theater interior designed by Herbert J. Krapp and built in 1973. This application is to remove interior stairs, relocate historic features, and to alter the rear wall. I note that the exterior of the building is not designated and the lobby is not included in the designation area of the Imperial Theater interior landmark. The Commission also notes that this scope of work is part of an application for a special permit for a theater bonus pursuant to the zoning resolution, including sections 81743 and 81745 for new construction off the landmark site, and that the specific permit requires that work be undertaken that supports the theater's physical and operational soundness, including preservation of the integrity of the existing architectural features identified in Landmark Preservation Commission's designation report. Finally, I note that the significant restoration work will be undertaken pursuant to staff level approvals. I recommend approval with the following modifications: that the theater's interior has a historic of modifications to its features and finishes, which reflects adapting the interior to evolving theater production and access requirements. That while the stairs between the first floor and the balcony are a significant architectural feature of the designated interior, the configuration at the rear wall was never symmetrical. Therefore, the removal will not result in an off-balanced arrangement. that the ironwork at the lower portion of the stair is of a different design, height, and material, and does not appear to be um, contemporaneous to the rest of the railing. Therefore, the work will not eliminate significant architectural features. That the removal and adjustments to the stairs and walls of both sides of the orchestra will improve interior circulation patterns, will retain the general proportions of the auditorium, and give the scale of the interior and low ceiling levels. Will not be perceptible volumetrically changes within the interior. That the wainscoting, plasterwork, and ceiling details where the house right stairs are removed are designed to match the architectural detailing and finishes present throughout the rest of the interior, thereby unifying the interior space. That the iron railings and two historic newel posts will be salvaged, modified, and reinstalled at the house left staircase. Therefore, decorative historic fabric will be retained and will remain visible from the auditorium. That replacing the lower portion of the remnant sound and light lock wall with a shallower stub wall will help the exposed stairs to better integrate with the rest of the ceiling details while still recalling the historic presence. That the removal of the existing non-historic military metal doors and retention of door castings at the balcony level will remove features that detract from the interior while still recalling the appearance of a historic door opening, and that the proposed work will improve safety and access without diminishing the special architectural and historic character of the interior landmarks. However, I note that the details for the ceiling panels and historic railings, disassembly, and retrofit are not fully resolved. I therefore recommend that the applicant work with staff to refine the ceiling and railing configurations and details.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilder. Can you second that, please?
A second.
Mark, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 6 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Right, that's approved. Please continue to work with the staff. I'm noting we are 30 minutes behind schedule, but we do have a long afternoon ahead of us, so we are going to continue on and move to the first public hearing item before we break for lunch. So we'll do that now. It's public hearing item number 1, LPC 25-07905, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 623, Lot 34, 60 Bank Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is an Italianate-style townhouse built in 1853 to 54, and the application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions, excavate the rear yard, alter the rear facade and lot line parapets, and install ironwork.
Ready to go? Okay. Hello, Commissioners. Joe Torella for Swiggy Torella Architects. This is 60 Bank Street. And this is a... Up, and it's down. Okay, the other way. This is a 1854 townhouse on the south side of Bank Street. We're going to restore it completely, and then we're also redoing the interior completely. It is currently an eight-family multiple dwelling. We're going to turn it back into a single-family house. We've been working with staff for a while now on most of the details of the front. So the restored front will look as the drawing on the side to the right shows. And we're here today for only a few items. One is a roof pop-up, and then a restoration of a rear extension, which is already there but not in very good condition, and excavation of a rear yard, and some changing of the rear windows and parapets in the back. Just 2 quick notes about the facade. We are adding 2 grills on the the lower windows, which have a lot of precedent in the neighborhood because we're lowering the windows back to the floor level, which they were originally at, and we'd like people to not fall out. And we're changing the position of the gate on the areaway from dead center to more to the left to be able to better use the areaway to be able to get down to the lower level. But otherwise, we're restoring the whole facade. This is a quick view of the block. We are the building up at the top
number 60. This just shows that the yellow represents other excavations on the block, the light green represents rear additions on the block, and the dark green represents roof additions on the block currently. And ours is pretty minor, but still important to the building for the use of the roof, etc. This is a quick axo of the before and after, showing most of the items that are contained in what we're seeking approval for. On the right is the proposed. There's the roof addition on the top. We're keeping the existing roof, which has a pretty steep slope. So we would like to modify the parapets somewhat to better make that work. And then there is the rear addition in the back, which we are rebuilding, but it's still the same distance. We're just fleshing it out a little bit more on top. And we would like to excavate some of the rear yard for storage, and which we would then restore back to the same level of the garden level that's there now. This is a roof plan before and after. The bottom is the pop-up. It's set back from the facade almost 8 feet, and it's not visible from the street on the straight-on view, but it is slightly visible down the street over the top of the next building, which is the shortest building on the block. So that's part of why we're here. But you see, this is the straight-on view. This is a cross-section showing the view line and also how much of the other building is visible, and the side of our building. We do intend to extend the flues of the other building's chimneys up to be able to clear our thing. Those will be non-reflective metal flue covers. And also on the side, you can see some of the parapet that we would like to build up. It's in quite disrepair, but we would also like to get it to a straight level where it would work for occupying the backside of the roof. This is the block, historic photos, what the building looks like. You can see that it's quite a mixed bag of buildings, all quite nice, but all different. It's not like there's a big straight collection of the same buildings. And this is the view of the pop-up from the street. The straight-on, the building, the shot on the left is the straight-on view, showing that you can't really see anything of it. And then as you go further west down the street, over the top of the building next to us, you see what is on the top, which is the orange netting. And then we've colored it in gray, which would represent the kind of zinc paneling that we hope to clad the pop-up with. These are views as you go down the street, and you can see that it pretty much disappears. And from the opposite corner on West 4th, you see just a tiny sliver of it all the way on the left. This is the cellar level, and then the rear yard will come in the next one, the basement level. But this it has basement occupancy, but this shows the excavation in the rear that we would like to do for storage purposes. And then this shows the basement level, which the rear extension is on the top, and it's same 6 foot 2 inches, I think, that we intend to just rebuild that. That was approved and built in the 60s somewhere. And also the areaway shows where we were putting the gate a little bit off center. This is the rear facade, showing what exists now and what is proposed. We do intend to replace the windows on the top with, and also make some adjustments to the lintels and the sills. And then we would like to extend the parapet again up a little bit with railings, etc., because as you can see here, the roof is quite steep, and it currently just drains off the back of the building. we want to change that to collect the water and drain it properly. But in order to do that, we have to do some work with the parapet to make that work. So that's what we're proposing. You can see still the sight lines. And this is a kind of a more of a blow-up detail of the rear, existing and proposed. And there's just some photos of the rear. It's the lower part especially is in not very good condition. There's quite a bit of wall that needs to be reinforced, et cetera, in order to put this building back in good condition. And this is just a view of the donut. The top view is has our building over to the right. And this is the view in the other direction, in which you can see that on the next street, quite a few things have been approved of a variety of additions, window types, air conditioning units, materials, et cetera. And so we feel that what we're asking for is a pretty modest addition to really help make this building, good for another 100 years. These are some of the close-ups of some of those things, so you can see what has previously been presented by other people. These are just some of the other plans if there's an interest in seeing, but the inside will be completely gutted. And the stair, that'll be a new stair. Yep, a couple of floors. You can see the floor itself. The floor plans are not huge. It's a compact little house. And the roof. And then on the top here is just the gate, the fence in the front with the gate shown off center. Choice of materials, and on the lower left is a sample of the zinc panels that we hope to clad the pop-up in. And other examples of things in the neighborhood clad in zinc, including the one on the left, which is the building right next door to us, which has that entire thing was approved at some previous recent date. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Does anyone in the room want to testify? See, oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
Rear facade, there are the top floor windows being changed.
We're replacing them with new windows. None of the windows in the rear are historic. They've all been replaced at a different time, but the locations and the size are the same.
Are you removing the lintels?
We are.
Why?
It's more in the modern look of the rear facade, we feel.
You referenced changes to the parapets several times. Could you walk through what those are, please?
Sure. The bricks that's shaded in the rendering is intending to be the new work. We're hoping to have enough bricks to gather to reuse, but that's the difference. We're basically adding about a foot to the top of the parapet in order to make a collecting area for a gutter and other things, and then we're putting a railing above that. And on the sides, we have
You have a drawing of the sides?
yeah. Beware. So here you see also on this is the side in which the current parapet is pretty broken with a lot of broken coping stones and other things, and it's quite uneven. We would like to raise that to the level of the one on the opposite side, which faces the other building, and just have a straight line of brick with new coping lines and whatnot.
It will be straight.
Straight.
It looks stepped to the left of the.
That will be on straight up to the existing neighbor's chimney. on the, which is the occupiable side of the roof.
I see.
Beyond the pop-up towards the front, that is just a railing, because we have some mechanical equipment and things up there. But
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions right now, I would like to turn it over to our Intergovernmental and Community Affairs, Stephen Thompson and Elizabeth Lee, to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. You'll be promoted to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be Chloe Gregoire.
Good day, Commissioners. My name is Chloe Gregoire, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Village Preservation is pleased to see the thoughtful restoration of this primary facade and finds the areaway ironwork to be appropriate. However, we find several other aspects of the proposal problematic. The depth and height of the rear extension could be more appropriate, but it and the rear facade above it are far too modern and glassy. The proposed overly large windows at the extension and third floor rear are completely out of scale and need to be redesigned. We also find the rooftop addition to be too visible and wonder if it might be sloped away from the side facade to mitigate this somewhat, though that may be difficult to achieve with the current layout of the interior stair. We seek assurance that the proposed mechanicals atop the rooftop addition will not be visible, and if they are, they should be relocated to the existing roof level to eliminate visibility. Finally, we request that extreme care is given to the excavation work to ensure the safety of this building and neighbors. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Emma Bartley.
This is Emma Bartley speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC found the rooftop addition modest and appropriate. However, we did object to the rear facade design. The composition is dominated by an excessive proportion of glazing relative to masonry. That is not in keeping with the historic rear facades of this type. We recommend a significant reconsideration of this aspect of the design to achieve a more appropriate balance of materials and openings. Thank you.
The next speaker will be John Graham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. While we certainly approve of and appreciate the restoration of the cornices and corbels on the top of the front facade, the proposed rooftop addition is far too visible. If the applicant were to provide a sloped roof over the stairway instead, then visibility of the addition from the street would be significantly reduced. We also take no issue with the reconstruction of the stoop and moving the door up to its original location at the parlor floor. With regards to the rear facade, we object to the removal of the double-hung windows on the second and third floors. The full floor windows on the lower and first floor should provide ample light and ventilation to achieve what the applicants are hoping for without the need to fully destroy the historic windows and adjacent masonry. If all 3 levels of full floor windows are approved, then at a minimum, the remaining top story windows need to retain their historic appearance and be double hung. Thank you, Commissioners.
The next speaker will be Bruno Cabwell.
Hello, how are you? I'm good.
Doing
I'm
well,
good.
thank
I'm
you.
good.
You may begin.
Yeah, I'm doing well. So like I don't know what's it about. So like, should I tell them what's it about? So what is the because it's my first time here. Like I was just joining from the YouTube and it was just on the we popped it on YouTube anyway. So what are you actually talking about in here?
This is an opportunity to testify on the current agenda item, 60 Bank Street. Do you have comments on this agenda item?
Okay. Okay, yeah, because it was like, I was like, I was just joining and I started to join the Zoom meeting. It just came through my email because I decided to join and it looks interesting. So because I'm interested, you started to do like refurbishing different houses. Is that what you're trying to do? Like buildings?
Okay,
Is
so
that what
I
you're trying to
we're
do? Like refurbish the roofs or something?
right. So you can get in touch with LPC separately. This is specifically testimony for one agenda item. So we're going to move to the next testifier for this agenda item, 60 Bank Street.
Anyone else who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends mixed approval, approval of the position of the areaway gate, the cellar excavation with underpinning and the extension apart from the windows, and denial of the cornice unless at the top of the existing front wall or the added courses of brick above the cornice are removed, and denial of the plate glass windows on the basement, parlor, and second floors.
Do you have any response to the comments?
Just a couple, yes. We did mock up the AC units on the roof. They're in the mock-up, and you cannot see them from the street. They're set to the back of the pop-up, and they're in the mock-up that is currently shown. And then as far as the windows in the rear are concerned, well, the redesign of the inside of the house is not historic, it's modern, and the intention was to carry that out to the rear facade. It's not visible, it's not in the historic, venue, and we felt that they were appropriate to have a change and have larger glass panels. There are many others in the donut and in the neighborhood, and we did not think that this was out of the ordinary, really.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any other questions?
I also just wanted to note that the staff is working with the applicant, and this proposal will be subjected to the enhanced engineering review program due to the excavation in the rear yard and or below the house.
Thank you. Commissioner Mann, can you close the hearing, please?
So moved.
Commissioner Goldblum, can you second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The hearing is closed. Commissioner Jefferson, would you start our discussion, please?
Sure. In terms of the front facade, I can approve the front facade. I think the establishment of a installing the stoop for the front facade appropriate, and it works. The rear facade I have problems with somewhat because I have seen multiple backyards with that much glass fenestration. But I do think if other commissioners approve this, that the fourth floor could have like the existing windows. And I think the installation of the ironwork is appropriate. And that's my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree pretty much with what Everardo was saying. I think that the front facade as proposed is fine, appropriate. I think that the rear facade, the third floor windows should remain the existing openings. In other words, they shouldn't be enlarged. And I could accept a single pane window in that, but I think Everardo's suggestion to keep the double hungs would certainly be an improvement. I think that the applicant should work with the staff on the position of the rooftop addition. If it is possible to reduce visibility, then they should do so.
Commissioner Mahan?
Yeah, I think the restoration work at the front is great and much appreciated. I do think you know, every landmark application is unique and specific to that particular site and building. And as you noted, you do have the shortest building next to you. You know, such as it is. So I think the rooftop addition is a little bit too visible, and the applicant could work with staff to reduce visibility, you know, by any, you know, for a variety of means, lowering, slanting, moving. As to the rear, the scale and massing of the proportion of the addition, pardon me, is entirely appropriate. I do think there's just too much change to the rear. I understand, you know, the applicant mentioned that there's a lot of variety to the rear yards of other buildings, and that this is not visible. Nonetheless, as well from Commissioner Goldblum, we regulate the entirety of the landmark building, not just that which is visible. So, you know, I think there's just a bit too much change here. Third floor windows could be maintained. The, you know, glass below could be reduced or have articulation added to it. I don't think I need to sort of dictate exactly how that is achieved. The lintels could be retained at the fourth floor, for example. I think the applicant could work with staff to retain a bit more of the historic character at the rear facade.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilder.
I think I think I agree that the front facade is an improvement. I think it is appropriate. I think my challenges come with the roof addition and the rear facade changes. I think the rooftop addition, I think it's too much going on with the chimney flues, the parapet, the actual addition. If there was a way, I know you're extending the flues because of the distance, and you need to be a certain feet above. So maybe, yeah, I don't want to tell you how to approach this, but finding a way to not bring so much attention to those or to the roof by extending those could also help by possibly reducing the size of that rooftop addition. I know we did see some images of other roofs that had a lot of things going on, but to your disadvantage, you are next to the shortest building on the block, and it doesn't necessarily work for this building in this context. And regarding the rear, I think it's too much glass. That's the first thing that kind of jumps out, and it really separates this building from the adjacent buildings with that amount of glass. And wherever you decide to kind of remove or reduce, I think it's up to you, but it's probably best to do it at that third floor. But it definitely feels off with the as at this facade as it relates to the adjacent.
Commissioner Cumbay?
I appreciate the moves that we're taking at the front facade. I believe it was very nice touches to bring the facade back to back to its its identity. The only issues I have, I do believe that the bulkhead is visible and should be cut down. As for the rear facade, the massing of it is fine, but again, as stated before, there's a lot of glazing. I don't know how you would work around that. Same thing, maybe it's the articulation, mullions, or even reducing some of the openings. And lastly, I would say the raising of the parapet, it shouldn't be done. It should just maintain at its level, and a simple railing should be included. Section at that level.
Okay, I'll just add my comments, which is I think at least on the third floor, there's too much glass. I'd also, and agree that the fourth floor, the windows should, I would accept another operation besides double hung, but the lintels should remain, and that there should be a little less glass on the addition. I'm all right with the addition, although I think the chimney extensions could be moved back to be less visible. We will not take action today and ask you to listen to, as you have, our comments and come back with a revised plan when you're ready. Thank you. And
Yeah, thanks. Please continue to work with the staff. We'll take no action on that item today, and we'll now break for lunch. It's 1 o'clock, and we'll come back at 1:30.
that concludes our morning session. We'll break for lunch. As Corey said, 1 o'clock, come back at 1:30. We ask all members of the public on Zoom to
Thank you.
voluntarily exit at this time so you don't experience technical difficulties returning to the afternoon session that may arise if we remove you from the meeting. Thank you.